Trey Lance's best play against the Chicago Bears gained 0 yards. It was an incomplete pass. This is it. Lance is making his first start as the 49ers franchise quarterback. He's backed up against his own end zone in a spread formation, and the conditions for this game were difficult throughout. In other words, this is about as difficult a situation as you can face as a quarterback. Kyle Shanahan shows a lot of faith in his new quarterback by giving him a straight drop-back passing play. Furthermore, as you can see in the image, the routes are also not safe throws where the combinations attack one specific part of the field. Lance is going to have to diagnose the coverage before the snap, at the snap, and after the snap to figure out where to throw the ball all by himself. The defense is hinting at cover 3 before the snap, and they drop into it at the snap. Lance looks to his right side, where he has 2 receivers working between the numbers and the hash mark. The first is his slot receiver, Deebo Samuel, releasing vertically before breaking sharply towards the middle of the field. The second is his running back, who takes an angled release before turning into a shallow curl route. Backed up against your own end zone, as an inexperienced player, the easier play here is to take the instant check down. It's one you see lots of experienced and inexperienced quarterbacks alike take. It's the easier play, but it's not the good play. It's definitely not the best play. Lance is going to leverage his running back's curl route underneath to open the passing lane to Samuel deeper downfield. He understands what the coverage is, so he also understands he has to manipulate the left side linebacker in coverage. When we roll the play on, we can see the linebacker jump forward to the running back as he is turning in his route. Samuel is now completely uncovered in the space behind the linebacker. Lance's ball is low, making sure that there won't be a tipped ball interception deep in his own territory over the middle of the field. But still, it lands into the chest of Samuel as he goes to the ground. That's a smart throw even if it ultimately doesn't result in a completion. But how did Lance move the linebacker? For that we must switch to this end zone angle where we can see his actions in the pocket more clearly. Lance trains his eyes on the running back underneath and opens his body to aggressively pump fake towards him. He then immediately whips the ball through the passing lane to Samuel before the other linebacker can come across the field. The poise and awareness of how to handle this coverage in this situation is incredibly encouraging. Bad quarterbacks go their whole careers without ever even showing an understanding of this concept on the field, not least actually execute it with any degree of success. The 49ers didn't have a completion or any box score success in this play, but Lance had a lot individually. For this play, the 49ers use motion before the snap to help tip the coverage off for their quarterback. Nobody on the defensive side communicates or follows the motion receiver, so the expectation is zone coverage. The defense also has 4 down linemen, but at the snap the right side defensive end drops into coverage while the linebacker on the opposite side blitzes. It's not actually a blitz because it's only 4 pass rushers, but it is a disguised pass rush in coverage that Lance has to quickly diagnose. It's important to note the defensive end that drops into coverage is on the narrower side of the field. Defenses do this so the heavier defender has less space to cover. But the knock-on effect is that the non-blitzing linebacker moving sideways has further to go to reach the outside receivers on the wide side of the field. Lance understands this and immediately looks to exploit it. He knows he has an in-breaking route underneath that begins to the outside before bending back inside. That will perfectly mesh with the timing of the coverage for the receiver to come open. But Lance also knows he can't rush to that look. He begins the play reading the linebacker. This holds him in the middle of the field, preventing him from sprinting all out towards the opposite side of the field. You can see the linebacker straight into the line of scrimmage and gain depth just before Lance snaps his hips to the outside and throws the ball to his receiver. He never led the linebacker to the ball. By staying square until the last moment, the linebacker has no reaction window. His throw is accurate, and you can see the space between the catch point and the linebacker. Had the defender been able to sprint to this spot from the start, he would have intercepted the ball or blown up the catch point. Instead, the offense gains 6 yards on 3rd and 5 and continues moving down the field. Lance also smartly converted a 3rd and 10 in this game. As an athletic quarterback, you're typically labelled as unintelligent and not a pocket passer, no matter how much evidence you provide to the contrary. Lamar Jackson is still somehow derided as not a pocket passer all these years later. Lance proved in this game that whether he becomes a successful NFL quarterback or not, he's certainly not a stereotype prospect that some may want to label him as. The defense uses another disguised 4-man rush on this play. This one is more complicated though. The slot cornerback to the top of the screen is coming. The 2 linebackers pressing the line of scrimmage at the start of the play are dropping out. The left side linebacker initially takes a step forward, but then he bails out into coverage as well. All of the movement immediately in front of Lance's eyes alone is something that would be distracting. Never mind being able to look past that to figure out what the coverage is being played behind it. Lance knows he has a running back in protection and he sees the immediate threat of the penetration through the middle of the pocket. His reaction to the pressure is perfect. He steps through the pocket but remains in a passing posture and keeps his eyes downfield. The defense still has numbers in coverage and nobody is obviously open at this point of the play. It's 3rd and 10, so Lance can't take the scrambling lane in front of him. That would just set up a punt. He instead shows off his arm strength and rockets the ball to his tight end over the middle in a tight window. His throw is imperfect. It's slightly behind its intended target, but it's accurate enough for his teammate to make the play for a first down. Lance showed plenty of positive signs of his pocket presence and awareness in this game. This typical Kyle Shanahan hard play fake from under center saw him feel pressure at the top of his drop. He doesn't panic, instead he smoothly steps slightly forward into the widest part of the pocket. This both negates the pass rushers and gives his receiver downfield the extra moment that he needed to clear the two defensive backs covering his deep crossing route. Lance caps off the play with a perfectly placed ball at high velocity so the receiver can run through the catch point and continue downfield after the catch. It's not the most difficult play in the world, but it's nice to see a young quarterback execute routine plays at a high level. But while Lance's technical qualities and acumen stood out in this game, the physical traits are a big reason why he became the 49ers' future. This play is another straight drop back with route combinations that require the quarterback to figure out where to go with the ball unassisted. He diagnoses the play perfectly to unleash one of the more impressive deep balls you're likely to see this season. Lance hits the top of his drop and locates the one-on-one deep shot down the left sideline. When he looks to his receiver, he can see the cornerback looking back at him. Compare that cornerback to his teammate at the top of the screen. They're supposed to be mirroring coverages even though this cornerback began to play in the slot. The other cornerback is focused on the receiver. The cornerback Lance is looking at is looking back at him, which means he's not shaped to run with the receiver running towards his outside shoulder. There's huge space in behind, and Lance perfectly flights the ball over the defender's head for the huge play. This should have been a touchdown, but it's the receiver's fault for stumbling more than it is for Lance's fault for a poor throw. Considering the weather, we can give both players on offense the benefit of the doubt. Lance made another throw that will make Kyle Shanahan very happy. It's another play fake that sets Lance up to throw to a crossing route. His receiver is open, but the window closes quickly, and Lance is ultimately forced to fit the ball between three defenders, including over one linebacker who is directly in the passing lane and fully extended to try and knock the ball out of the sky. This is a dangerous throw that Lance nailed so that his receiver is never at risk of being hit and the ball is never at risk of being intercepted. While the potential of Lance was made clear in this game, there was also negative plays that must be noted. They are concerns at this point rather than major red flags. The first is a simple missed throw. The weather was bad in this game, but at this point it was not torrential. This is the best play design in football because of its huge reward and success rate. It's also a very safe play. It's a tight end throwback that Shanahan throws into his offense every so often with great effect. The beauty of this play is it gives the quarterback a clean pocket. It takes away the coverage for the intended receiver and can be executed at a high level by almost any standard of NFL player. Lance is somewhat unfortunate because he faces a small bit of pressure. It's more than he'd expect on this play, but it's also still not really significant. He can get the ball out in good time before being knocked over. His pass then simply sails over the head of its intended receiver. That's an easy missed touchdown. Maybe he'll hit this play 9 times out of 10 in better conditions and this incident will be forgotten to history, but for now it's notable. This is Lance's interception in the game. On the broadcast angle, it looked like a young quarterback making a rookie-style error by leading a defensive back to the ball and forgetting to look him off before making the throw. But on all 22 review, we can see that Eddie Jackson actually works really hard to bait Lance into a bad decision. A lot happens on defense here, but all we need to focus on is the two deep safeties. Jackson is at the top of the screen. Before the snap, he's already in a deep position, and just at the snap, he's drifting back further away from the line of scrimmage and wider. They're showing a cover 2 shell. When the ball is snapped, Jackson rotates down and to the inside while his safety partner rotates back and to the inside as well to create a single high safety look. Lance knows he has receivers outside that he can throw to now because Jackson is working away from their routes, but Jackson is in a robber position so he's still a danger. We can see from the end zone angle that Lance's eyes go to Jackson immediately. He sees the safety go inside and turns his head outside to throw to his slant route. But what Lance doesn't realise is that Jackson immediately plants his foot as soon as Lance turns away from him. Jackson wasn't going inside and staying inside. He's baited Lance into throwing to where he will be, because he's looking at the quarterback's eyes, not at the receivers in the middle of the field. It's a bad decision from the quarterback, but it's also not a major red flag the way it would be if the defense did nothing to disguise their coverage and the quarterback simply threw the ball straight to a defender. That happens far more often than you'd think at this level. Understanding coverages isn't difficult. Seeing them on the field as they develop is very difficult. It's why quarterbacks get paid obscene amounts of money. You need exceptionally fast processing ability to be consistent at this level. Lance showed some hesitation in the red zone against the Bears. On this play, they again motion a receiver right to left. The defense adjusts, but nobody follows the receiver across the formation. When the ball is snapped, Lance looks left and sees one-on-one coverage to that side. It's man coverage against 3 of his receivers. If he sticks with this side of the field, his tight end is about to come wide open. He should understand this because he knows his tight end is going to make a sharp cut outside. He knows the routes. But he looked away from the play prematurely. He didn't like what he saw and instead looked to the middle of the field where the numbers advantage favoured the defense. Realising his mistake too late, Lance then runs himself into a sack instead of finding a way to escape the pocket and extend the play. Finally, we see Lance make an error managing the pocket against pressure. He's on a straight drop back in a spread formation again. When the ball is snapped, he hits the top of his drop and sees the interior of his pocket collapsing. He has to move, but how he moves and where he moves to are going to negate any good work that he does. Lance is already breaking his posture at this point in the play, and he's dropped his eyes. He's going to compound those errors by making a more aggressive movement forward at an angle as if he's trying to run through the pocket. He needed to just take small steps sideways to reset within the pocket and not move forward at all, staying in his passing posture. Once he starts going forward, he actually invites more pressure and his body posture gets worse for throwing the ball. This has a major impact on his timing to release the ball downfield into the open window. He needed to hit the slant window at that point when he's crouching and overextending his front foot in the edge of the pocket. By overreacting to the initial pressure, a chain of events is set off that causes him to lose his timing, then wind up making a rash throw trying to make up for it. These are the small details that have a big impact for NFL quarterbacks. Still, after this game, Lance mostly just deserves credit for his Week 1 performance. He's under a serious amount of pressure, not least with Jimmy Garoppolo still standing on the sidelines. If he builds on this foundation for the rest of the season, the 49ers will likely be very happy with what they've got. They'll likely never have to go back to Jimmy G.